Well, I've come to the conclusion that communication is really the universal solvent. To me, the language of music is such a special and unique language because it does talk to people. You know, I've sat in that room alone just saying, I think I'd rather die than do this.
Well, hello, my friends. It is John O'Leary, and today the Voices of Soul on Fire series concludes with the person who gave us the soundtrack for Soul on Fire. His name is Mark Isham. That's a name you may not recognize, but you will know his work. I think he's one of the great composers in all film. One of my favorite movies is A River Runs Through It. Not just because of the actors, not just because of where it was shot and how incredible the storyline is, but as you pay closer attention to that film and films generally, you'll recognize the music itself is what changes the way you feel about any scene. It can lower your energy. It can elevate your enthusiasm for a moment. It can make you feel nervous, anxious, excited, joyful. It's not just the acting. It's not just the photography. It's the music. And what we know from Soul on Fire is we were blessed with an incredible soundtrack produced, created, composed by Mark Isham. When he sits down, though, he looks at a blank piece of paper. And as he shared with me during the conversation, that creates both a little bit of fear, but an awful lot of faith. I want you to listen to this conversation today with a blank piece of paper in front of you. I will not force you to compose an entire film score. No, that's not what we're doing. But you get to wake up today and to decide, how do you want to live, not just today, but tomorrow and going forward. The call forward from this episode, my friends, is not perfection. You will not get that in a musical score. You will not find that in life. But as you trip your way forward, you may recognize something even more beautiful than perfection. It's progression towards something beautiful in your life. You're going to love this conversation with a humble, joyful, brilliant guy. Now he's a friend of mine and soon to be yours. His name is Mark Isham. Mark, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And Matt, it is a pleasure to be where we are. Tell our listeners and our viewers where you and I are doing this recording today.
We're a few miles outside of the city of Los Angeles in my home, and this is my working studio.
What happens here?
Oh, my goodness. Well, the main thing, because my job personally is to create something out of nothing. I get an assignment to write some original music to accompany a film, a television, or just to make a record. And there's description sometimes, like in the case of Your Beautiful Film, there's a film there. There's a lot of, there's a big story to be told. And so that's the first point of inspiration. But in terms of music, there's nothing there. There's has to come out of somewhere. So this whole room is sort of designed to help me do that. Help me just sit and come up with ideas quickly, efficiently, get them out of that spiritual creative universe onto the physical universe in some form, so that I can communicate it to other people. And so all the gear really is to help that process.
Yep.
But the main process is whatever that is, that creative thing, that happens.
I want to talk about that. When you bump into someone not in LA, because they'll probably know you immediately by your name and your reputation, when you travel through the beautiful city of St. Louis, Missouri, or you're in Des Moines, Iowa, or you're in a grocery store in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and someone says, "Hey, man, what do you do for a living?" How do you respond to that?
I generally say I'm a musician, composer, and performer. And then it'll be just, okay, fine. I'm not, I have no interest
Go
in
that way for the Cheerios.
No interest in continuing that way. Or, who do you play with? Or what do you write for? If there's a spark of interest.
Yeah.
And I'm totally willing to discuss.
So you're vague. You don't lead with some of the bigger things you've done. You're more broad and generally the work you do.
I'm not a great PR for myself in that sense. I don't sort of immediately give all the more well-known things that I have done. My wife is always on me about that. She says, you could afford to be 10% more arrogant. You really could.
It is refreshing to have a guy who's so humble. We've taken a tour of the studio, the wife's studio, the kids' house. So I feel like I'm with family today. There's no ego in the room. It's refreshing. And I think it's part of why you've had decades of success in a community that rarely does.
Yeah, it's an interesting business, the entertainment industry.
Right.
Especially the music side of it and the film side of it. You sort of constantly do have to reinvent yourself. I mean, you look at the great artists that have done that over the years, that have careers that span many decades. Well, you can see the times when, new idea, new thing to tell the world, And so you have to be aware of that, and I think you have to be willing to take those moments of reflection and figure out what's the next me that I want to present,
So one of my favorite musicians is a guy from New York who lived in LA for a while named Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond.
Started the journey in New York, moved out to LA. Now he dances back and forth. And there's a song like I Am, I Said, where neither place is home. I think you have homes in both. But I want to start the journey not in your studio, but back home in New York.
Sure.
Spent formative years there until you were almost 12.
About there, yeah. I believe so, yeah. 6th grade.
What part of New York were you growing up?
In Manhattan.
Wow.
Born and raised in Manhattan. And, it was a different city back then. I used to jump on the bus by myself and go across town, as a 10-year-old.
Imagine.
I don't think, we wouldn't let our kids do that now.
Right.
But it was a fun. I grew up with a good sense of the world, that the world is a big place.
Right.
And that there are a lot of different types of people and interesting people. And with parents who were intellectuals and worked in the university systems. And then also my mother was a performer. So I would go to rehearsals. I would see how a 65-piece symphony orchestra would get itself together for a show. I grew up on that. So I had a lot of insight into parts of the world that a lot of young people don't get.
Did you recognize that was an unusual way to grow up? When you're in the middle of it, do you even know it's rare?
I didn't realize it was rare. I mean, occasionally, you would then go to school and have friends that didn't have it.
Right.
And you realize, I remember in 4th and 5th grade, tell us about your favorite book. And so people were raising their hands. The story of Babe Ruth or whatever. And I raised my hand and said, the story of the opera house that was built. And the whole class went, who the hell is this guy?
You lost your lunch money shortly thereafter and went home with a black eye and a bloody nose.
So it was that points like that in your life, you realize, yes, I have a very different upbringing.
I think it's so cool, though, when kids aren't afraid of being different and celebrate that difference, that uniqueness, and foster it. Yeah. There are people who are musicians as parents and they push it away, even though they have the gift.
Yeah.
There are people who have pastors as parents and they push it away because they don't want what was their dad's or their mother's. Yeah. You seem to have embraced it. You stepped into piano and then onward from there.
Yeah, it was, I'd like to put myself up on a pedestal, but it was almost just a relentless, there's nothing else, To me, there was just no other path. Again, a school anecdote. You're doing a science class and you're supposed to come up with some sort of paper to write on that's scientific, right? So do the research, present your arguments, show them, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's doing molecules and they're doing chemistry and they're doing biology. And I'm analyzing the airflow through a trumpet because that's what I loved. I loved playing trumpet. I was a trumpet player from the age of 10. And so to me, the only scientific thing worth exploring was, how does the air actually work through a trumpet? Yeah.
So
once again, the whole class goes, what?
Sorry, my listeners, hang on for a minute longer. I promise you we will entertain you if you let us. Don't turn the channel quite yet. We had my great-grandmother's piano in our house. So all 6 O'Leary kids took the piano as just part and parcel for our upbringing. Your mother was into the violin.
Yeah, she was a professional violin.
Master at violin. Yeah. I think the violin might be the most beautiful instrument in the world. Personal opinion here, but it's an incredible instrument.
Fantastic. I love writing for violin. And I played it. It was my first instrument.
I knew you did. Yeah. Did she try to push you to remain there, or was she cool with you moving into a trumpet? It's a completely different sound that it's going to produce.
Eventually, she was cool. I think she was a little disappointed
right?
Because she certainly had pushed me into playing violin. And I was a good violinist. I was the concert master of the youth symphony at the age of 12 or something. And I could play really fast, but I could never get the vibrato. And the vibrato is the secret to that beautiful classical sound. And at the same time, I said, I want to play trumpet. So she said, okay, if you play both, you could play trumpet. And then I played the second movement of the Haydn Trumpet Concerto when I was 13. And she said, okay, I guess you're a trumpet player.
So at 13, are you now on the West Coast?
That was still on the East Coast. But actually, 13, that was the transition, I think. I think just the last year.
You went to Drake High School?
I went to San Rafael High School, just down the street from Drake High School.
Okay. And at that point, now you're full tilt into jazz.
Yes, I discovered jazz moving to California. The kid who's fish out of water, knows nobody's on the radio at night, and I'm sort of scanning, looking for something to listen to, and I come across a jazz station.
Huh.
And that was it. It changed my life.
Tri-Tone Trio. Is that a band you recognize? It's a famous band from the 70s, I believe.
I haven't heard that in a long time. You've done some serious research here, John.
Our listeners may not be quite as familiar with it as I am. Tell me about that group.
Well, if I remember correctly, and you could correct me if I don't remember this correctly, that was a trio I had with the two Mikes, Mike and Mike, right? Mike Formanek and Mike Barsamano. And it was a wild jazz,
Totally
weird jazz, just trumpet, electric trumpet, bass, and drums. And we would just, we would set up in the plaza and play free concerts in the little jazz lofts and just stuff like that. It was really just sort of a renegade operation in those days.
I heard you practiced in kitchens, backyards, garages.
Everywhere.
Parents probably slamming doors, begging you to be quiet.
Yeah.
I also heard that you learned improv essentially from the radio, Miles Davis, et cetera.
Yeah.
But you practiced it during this time. Like you became part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you discover jazz and you realize it was a huge revelation to me that when you listen to Miles Davis, he's not playing anything that's written on a piece of paper. He's referencing things that come from a piece of paper, but the actual notes he's playing, he's making up in real time as you're listening or as it's being recorded. And that to me was a revelation. As a trained classical musician, I had no idea and it just immediately captured my imagination and my interest. And so I just started doing it. I just started improvising by myself and finding other people, like-minded people, and getting together, Tri-Tone Trio, other groups of just people who wanted to learn that vocabulary and learn how to effectively do that.
You and I were talking right before we hit record about when in improv, the value of listening. In fact, I've heard you say several times, it might be the most important aspect of improv.
Well, I think so. I've certainly been in those situations where you put a band together and you say, well, let's play. And there you have that guy who's just playing for themselves over in the corner, even though you're supposed to be playing together as a band. And to me, that's a waste of time. Why don't you just go home and play in the corner by yourself? The whole point of an improvisational ensemble is that you're interacting and you're conversing. I go so far to say it's rude. It's like being in a conversation and not listening to anything that the other people are saying and not being willing to interact with what they're saying. And if the piano player goes down, da, 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 you can go da, 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 da. Or you can decide I'm going to go da, da, go completely against it. But there's some conversation that is happening here. And that's what makes it the beautiful art form it is.
Oh, I think in conversations like the ones we're having and others are having around the country right now and around the world, the mistake we make is to think that we're conversing at all and that we're actually listening to the other person. And so part of the reason why I bring this up with you is less about music and more about life. I think what has made you so remarkable professionally would make the rest of us far better personally.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that communication is really the universal solvent. If you had to strip life down to just one basic thing or one basic activity that one engages in to increase one's better survival in life, and to really live, it's to communicate. I mean, you communicate with this table and you touch it and you understand it's made out of metal. That's communication. I talk to you. We understand each other. That's communication. The world is a better place if we know each other better. The world's a better place if I understand how this table works better.
Right.
Through communication, one can gain, share a reality with someone. The affinity increases, and understanding will blossom. But communication is the thing one actually does to create that sort of effect. And so, as an artist, I've had a couple of major cognitions about this. Become aware of the fact that I have to communicate. If I'm an artist, I can't just play to the floor. The whole point is that I'm delivering a communication to an audience.
Yeah.
So how can I improve that? Right next to the fact that when I'm talking to a film director, if I can't duplicate what they're saying and get them to duplicate what I'm saying, we're not probably going to make a really good film together. And the better that communication is just verbally between two artists attempting to make a communication that's going to go beyond our creation. Again, it's communication. So anything that one can learn about the art and skill of communicating just betters. And you say a long career, I think it's because of those awarenesses.
One of my final questions tucked into this 72 questions I have outlaid for you already is, man, talk about this career and the enduring aspect of it. We'll come back to that later on after folks hear about how wonderful this has been. When did you recognize in that garage or kitchen or park, wherever you were playing, that this was not only awesome and life-giving to you, but it actually might be a profession?
I can't think that there was any one particular time that I became aware of it. I think it was always just there. I saw that my mom made a living at it. I saw friends of hers she was friends with the Guarneri Quartet. They would come and do concerts at the university where she taught with my father. And they would come to house for dinner. And here's an internationally respected string quartet that travels the world. So I saw, again, at the age of 8, I saw people could do this and do it at a very high, beautiful level, And so I think it just sort of evolved. Well, of course, I don't like doing anything else. I had a job one summer clearing brush, with a I don't even know what they're called, brush clearing shears and things like that.
It sounds like work.
And I just said, no.
Right.
I mean, I can do this, but I think it's sort of a waste for me, I'm wasting my time because I'd better suit it to something else. And so it became very clear to me that I need to look at this not just as a hobby, but as a vocation. So what can I do to make myself valuable in a marketplace as well as the best artist?
Tell me what the difference between a hobby/profession and a vocation is.
A hobby is something that you can just do and do for your pure enjoyment. And you can be brilliant. You can be the best in the world, but your only concern is just doing it and finishing it and having it exist. A vocation, a professional, has a whole nother part of that communication has to occur once you've done it. You've made the communication, it exists. You have to get it into the world because you need to elicit exchange. So now you're into the world of PR and marketing and sales, which you just have to confront if you're a professional. No matter what you do, you can make metal tables. But you're going to have to confront telling people that you make metal tables and that they would really like having your metal table and they can afford it for the, in the following terms. The same thing as a trumpet player. You're going to like my trumpet performances. And I think you should have one. And I think you should pay me $15.95 for whatever records used to cost.
Yes. You had presently an amazing career as a trumpet player. Traveled the world. And we could spend an entire podcast talking about that. At some point, we've got to shift into the entertainment world that you're living in right now. Never Cry Wolf. It's this most unlikely opportunity to shift gears, cross lanes, and move into an entirely different genre. Would you talk about Never Cry Wolf?
Yes. I had developed a love for electronic music along with jazz. In fact, pretty soon afterwards. So I was an improvising trumpet player. I was learning enough piano to get around to educate myself on the language of music.
All right.
And all of a sudden, this world of electronics was sort of opening up. And some of the jazz players were doing it. Some classical composers were using it. It shows up in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It starts to show up in movies and stuff and all of it. And so I'm into it. And I save up my money and buy my first synthesizer. So it's like lane 2 of my career. There's trumpet playing and then electronics. Based on a piece of music that I had written with a friend of mine where I did all the electronic stuff, the film director heard it and said, that's the sound I'm looking for, and offered me a chance to score a film. I had never done it. I had no idea how to do it. It turns out I had sort of a natural proclivity because I did it without any training, and I finished it, and it was accepted, and it's still, I think, one of my best scores. Now, did I not work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day for 4.5 months to get that first product, something that should only take like 5 weeks? And you could take Sunday off? Yeah, because that's what it took, to get that first one at that level of not really knowing. But artistic instinct was there, the taste, the innate understanding of how to tell a good story. You know,
Our viewers and listeners, for the most part, have never even contemplated, I had not, until we went through this process, what it looks like to compose, what it looks like to put a soundtrack as the drumbeat of a film. And sometimes that drumbeat carries the film, and other times it just carries it forward quietly. But regardless, it's a really important aspect of the film.
very important. Yeah.
Walk us through that first one as an example of you get a film, and maybe it's got music subbed in at that time, maybe not. But basically, it's blank canvas. Back to that blank canvas example, there's nothing on the page. There's a director's vision. The door shuts, and you're left by yourself. Now what?
Well, I've been through it all. I've been through the exhilaration of it. I've been through the complete dread and terror. You know, I've sat in that room alone just saying, you know, I think I'd rather die than do this. You know? Because I think the psychology of creation is very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of darkness in people that don't want them to succeed, you know, that can blonde and say, no, you're not going to succeed. You shouldn't be doing well, blah, blah, blah. And you have to, especially if you're trying to do something artistic and creativity, I think that can come up. And you just have to learn how to back that down and put it aside, acknowledge it for what it is, but it's not real. It's not really what you want. You know, you're here to create something. I know it's a magic process, but the few things that I do know about it is it's not thinking. It's above thinking.
Tell me what you mean.
Thinking is a very sort of mechanical process. You think, well, if I put red and I put yellow and I put blue together, I'm going to get this. So let's try putting red and yellow. So that's sort of thinking something through, as opposed to just going, what do I see here? And just, there it is.
So then
You have to rise above the details and the mechanics of something and just create it.
from a tactical perspective, are you looking up at a screen, watching a scene unfold, and your fingers are on a keyboard and you're just beginning to kind of feel your way through a film?
I remember on that first film when I really had no technical idea, no tricks of the trade or anything. I just sat with a synthesizer and just would play one note and tweak the sound until I felt that sound belongs in that environment. And I think if one's an orchestral writer, one has to use one's imagination, or you get one of those keyboards that has all the orchestra sounds in it and do it that way. But certainly great music was written long before all that technology existed. So the idea is that it's just, you create it. You create it, and then the skills, the trained skills are just how to get that creation into the physical universe, and then how to fill in all the details so that it really does sound great. But that moment, that's why I think it's above thinking. You can sort of categorize activities as sort of on a scale of higher, for lack of a better word, just higher spiritual, if you will. It's above sort of the physical universe. It's another world, and it's created, and then it's up to you to bring it into this world.
A lot of our listeners will notice flow, and you just lose track of everything and live into genius for a moment.
Exactly. That's another way of expressing it very well.
You're already busy. You're married. You have children that are showing up. You're on the road. You're selling records and have plenty of opportunity. This new one comes your way. Why say yes to it? You have to know on the front side, it's going to be burdensome to write an entire score for a film.
It's not as daunting as it used to be. That first
This is
film score
1982, 83.
That was daunting.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was young and I really didn't know any better. I hadn't accumulated the losses or whatever it is that would tell me no, that would allow me to say no. I knew that I was being given an opportunity to be paid to write music. And it wasn't even that much money. I mean, in those days, it was a lot of money. In this day, I look and say, I did that for that money? Are you kidding? My agent would kill me. But again, you always have to keep that eye on, I'm a professional, and I really want to figure out how to exchange my artistic visions into a marketplace. I want that interaction. I don't want to just be the person in their attic doing it, and when they die, they discover all this stuff there. No, that's not what I want to be. I want to interact with the world. So somebody comes to me and says, all right, we'll pay you some money to write an hour of music. Are you kidding? I don't have to worry about the rent or food for a month, and I can write music. What an unbelievably great opportunity. And here's the other thing, and I'll mention it now because you'll probably ask me this eventually. I think the one reason that I keep doing this, and it's the reason I did it in the first place, and it's the reason I did your film, and it's the reason I will do the films upcoming, even after this many years. To me, the language of music is such a special and unique language because it does talk to people. So anything that I can do to improve my ability to use that language.
That's good.
And any new story that I'm asked to contribute to tell will teach me something new about that language because I will have to say something slightly different in a slightly different way with that language. And to me, it's those moments at 2 a.m. in this room when I'm all by myself and I push the playback button and I listen to what I've just written and I go, hell yeah. I've just done something that I've never done before right there, and it's really good.
The answer is probably yes to my either or. Are you composing when you're in front of that blank piece of paper for John O'Leary and his kids in the movie theater in St. Louis for the end user? Are you doing this for the producers and the director and the machine behind it? Or are you doing this because you know this is what it needs to be and you're just going to provide this unique skill and sound to what you know needs to be there? It's for you.
It definitely starts there.
So it has to be your heart first.
It has to be. It has to be. And that's what gets me through the whole process. The other things come into play, though, because that's part of the professionalism.
Right.
If the producers don't like it, if you don't like it, if it's not telling the story the way you want it told, or certainly the way the producers want it told, I have to be aware of that. And I have to be able to say, all right, let's discuss this. How can we do the best of all worlds? My world doesn't get violated, but it actually addresses the people that are on the team.
Yeah.
It's a team effort to make a film. And that, I think, is where we come back to that communication issue, and why I still am in this business. I've seen people fall out of this business because they're unwilling to confront the fact that they actually have to talk to the producers. They can't just hate them.
And receive feedback from time to time that might be acted on.
Exactly.
You may have to take some notes.
You have to take the notes, you have to take them graciously, and you have to figure out how to handle them to the best of everybody's expectations.
So my mom wanted to fly out here with me because she is so moved by your work. I won't go through all of them because our listeners might fall asleep and your head may not fit out of the studio here in a minute. But probably to many of our listeners and viewers, you're most known for A River Runs Through It.
Yeah, could be, yeah.
And we'll go through several others,
Yeah.
and then you can say, well, what about this one, John?
Right.
But when you score that, do you recognize we've done something here? Like, do you know even before the director has seen it, the producers have checked it out, Brad Pitt and Redford have viewed it and called you back, that this is something that you already know in your heart? It's perfect. It's an incredible piece.
And that one, no, I didn't. I was scared, very scared on that picture because I saw the picture and it had already been scored by a world-class Academy Award-winning composer, and Redford had thrown out the score. And God knows he hired me. And I wasn't that far along in my career at that point. I'd done some nice movies, but nothing that would have given me thought that I would be replacing this Academy Award-winning composer. So I was terrified, petrified. And I remember sitting in the screening of the first time I saw it and thinking, I have no idea what to do. I don't like this. They'd put temporary music in the film.
Do you enjoy the temp music, or does that distract you?
It can be very distracting. I have different reactions to it now because I've learned to look at temporary music through very professional eyes now as to what one I need to learn from it. I don't have to enjoy it. I have to learn from it. And I remember sitting there saying, I hate this temp music, but I have no idea what to do. I don't know how to make it better, but this isn't very good. And then the last piece at the very end of the film is just very moving scene with his voiceover and everything. Norman MacLean's words. And they had put in Jean-Pierre Rumpal, the great flautist, had done an album of Irish folk songs. And they put one of his pieces from that album on the temp music. And I said, that's it. I just have to sit down and write 6 beautiful folk songs and then give them to different beautiful instruments with great players. And that's what's going to score this film. And I came out of there confident that I could probably do this as long as I could keep it together enough to write that much music.
It remains remarkable.
Well, thank you.
And when I'm in a mood where I either need to chill out or get fired up, it's odd that it works both ways. I'll sometimes put that in just to level set.
Well, thank you.
You worked with Jodie Foster a bunch.
I have, yeah.
And I have several written down, but is there a movie in particular that you recognize? Why don't we talk about this, John?
Well, I think the best one with Jodie, even though she didn't direct it, but Michael Apted had directed, and he was very gracious, knowing that she really wanted to direct it, and I think the studio wasn't going to let her do it unless someone like he was there. So he really let her take over a lot of the directing job.
On which film?
This is Nell.
This is Nell.
Yeah. Because Nell, I think, was another high point for me. I think I really found something unique. It just expresses a certain type of beauty.
Yeah.
Both of those, I mean, I think the word that comes to me is there's just a beauty in those two, both of those films.
There's similarities in those two films.
Yeah.
There's a lot of soft moments.
Yeah.
That would be washed away if it wasn't done right. And you carried it brilliantly.
Well, thank you.
You're in, oddly enough, comedies, horror movies. Like, you run the gambit not only in your skill set musician wise, but also in the genres that you provide in these films.
Well, that's just because you don't want to do 5 river runs through it in a row. At a certain point, I mean, you see it with sequels, even just the film sequel phenomena itself. I mean, at a certain point, you just get sort of worn out in one genre. So I will actually say to my agent, can we do something else here?
So a couple other types of films. Crash.
Yeah.
I would imagine
Well,
that's
Crash is the other film
of.
that I'm very, very proud of.
I
That
bet.
film went on to win an Academy Award, and that film, there was no money on that film. That's an electronic score, not because it was maybe the best idea. I think it turned out to be a good idea, but we had no choice. We had no money. It was all done in this room, mixed in my engineer's living room. I mean, it was just done on a shoestring budget, but came up with some clever ideas of how to do something that would, again, communicate the emotions that needed to be communicated on that type of budget.
Do you have to like the film to do it?
Generally, I have to like the film. I have to like something about it. I do a lot of Jason Statham movies,
Right.
and I enjoy him. I think he's a character, and he's
One of your more complex pieces, I think, The Accountant.
Well, The Accountant is a great film, I think, made by perhaps certainly one of my top 3 directors that I just enjoyed working with. Gavin O'Connor is just a brilliant director. And I've done 4 movies with him. And The Accountant was the last one. And yeah, I think it's not a melodic score at all.
Right.
It's a very textural score, but it seemed to be the way that movie wanted to be presented.
My boys are into sports, as you might imagine, and they like a movie called Miracle.
Well, that was Gavin's first film, same director. And that's very melodic and very heart's right on your sleeve in that movie.
Most recently, we'll get to the point. Most recently, you've created your most recent masterpiece for the film On Fire. Tell me how you were even introduced to the film. Like, how does that process shake out?
I think it was Julia Michaels,
Was it Julia?
who I've worked with before. And we'd always told each other how much we enjoyed that first film we did together. And I think when it came across her plate, she thought of me and just said, how about this guy? And then did I read it first? No, I think you just sent me a rough cut.
Was going to ask you that too. Do you normally read script or do you watch film?
Sometimes I'll read a script, but if it's really that's a director's choice usually. If they feel the script is a really accurate representation, then they'll send a script. If they know they've rewritten so much and changed it so much, they say, no, just look at my film.
What do you hope is moved in the hearts of those who see that film and hear that film?
Well, it's a story of just overcoming all odds, really, and especially by a child, a young person who
Right.
may not have is not familiar with himself to know whether he can do that or not. It's one thing if you're 40 and you sort of know, well, I beat that when I was 20 and I beat that when I was 30. And so I'm going to gird my loins and go out there and win this one. But if you're, you tell me 8, 9,
right.
9, you don't know that. You just know that things are really screwed up. and so it's just inspiring. And the Bill Macy character is a beautiful character in the sense that so little can go such a long way to help,
So
because it's not really that little, you know.
It's massive. But so the folks who don't know, Bill Macy plays a guy named Jack Buck.
Yeah.
Jack Buck is a broadcaster who hears, and this is all a true story about John getting burned and having no chance of surviving.
Yeah.
Doesn't know him and goes to the hospital to visit a stranger. Yeah. Is told that he's going to die, and then wrestles with that for the rest of his life on how he can bring this kid forward into his life. Yeah. I refer to it as a love story.
Yeah.
John ends up getting married and having family. Great. That's a love story too. But that character, Jack Buck, and Bill did a great job.
Yeah.
But so did the composer.
Oh, well, thank
you. I've been listening to the track, and I don't have all the titles memorized. I think one of them is called On Fire. It's the longer piece, probably 7 minutes in length.
Yeah.
When you look at a white piece of paper and you're trying to push yourself through that process, take me through the creative even on that. Like, what do you try to do knowing that you're trying to move an audience in a certain way when there's a tragedy unfolding and there's hope on the horizon, but you've got to get through the pain first?
Right.
How does music elevate that?
Well, emotions flow, you know, they go up and down. And so I think and this is where the director, Sean, was very, you know, instrumental in helping me, helping anyone, the picture editor, know that flow. There's going to be the moment of adrenaline, you know, oh, the fire's burning. Oh, there's flames, you know, we're running around,
right?
You know, and so that's not really, there's this kind of excitement, you know, adrenaline and stuff. And then it looks like, oh, this is going to hell in a handbasket here. You know, things are on fire. The kid's on fire. Oh my God.
Yes.
You know, so that goes, and then you look at from the sister's point of view. Oh my God, this is just horrific. You know, sadness, you know, tragedy. You know, but then the fire trucks are coming, and then there's more, but then we're back into the adrenaline. We're into the ambulance. You know, so you understand the storytelling, and you have to be specific to that, and you have to help that. Mm. And I think that the way you don't get mired down in any one emotion is you know where it's going to go next, and you let yourself go into and amplify a certain emotion, like the daughter kneeling on the grass, hopeless, and then the young sister coming and starting to throw water. I remember when that first water goes on your face, that was a moment for me. I have a marker on my computer, 1 hour, 4 minutes, 57 seconds, water. Okay, that's the key for the adrenaline for the whole next chapter.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just good filmic storytelling. You know, you isolate how you're going to get there, when you can afford to do this, and when you have to stop doing that and do something completely different.
How do you wrestle with whether it's a piano, percussion, trombone, trumpet, oboe, or harmonica that you utilize to carry that emotion? Like, when do you begin putting those pieces into play?
I think this was a more little intellectual exercise. Part of it was just sort of looking at certain scenes and not listening to anything, but just looking at the environment, looking at the characters. It had to have a sense of intimacy because it's a small, normal family. You know, this isn't like a country is on fire. Right. This is like a very intimate little portrait, right? But at the same time, the emotions are as if it were, you know, the world was on fire. Mm. So that becomes the emotional expression, but you need to sort of do it. I felt, at least, I didn't want to oversell it with a massive orchestra. I just thought it's just going to make it corny, I think. It has to somehow be done on the terms that you're viewing. And so the idea was that it was a small band, you know, a couple of guitars, bass, drums. I also wanted to feel somewhat contemporary, somewhat part of the world that your family would be a part of. You know, to have a huge symphony orchestra just sort of wouldn't connect to what you're looking at. You're looking at suburban America. Yeah. Right. So what would that be? You know, well, it would just be sort of the band that you might listen to on the radio for a pop, you know, rock pop thing or country pop or whatever it might be. You don't need to be specific with the genre, but something that belongs, like that mailbox belongs in the shot. What else? What music belongs in that shot? You know, and then ask that band to hit those emotional tones. And so you have to beef it up here and there with stuff, but don't call attention to the stuff. Just use it for what you need to tell. We got some really big drums when that water goes on the face, but you don't want to be hit over the head to the point where you go, oh my God, where the big drums come from? It's part of the fabric of it. And that's the skill of good scoring. You'd never call attention to the music as a piece of music. You only call attention to the music by the fact that you're feeling it in a deeper way than you would feel without it.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but I think it's in line with what we're talking about. Do you feel like this is the new age of classical composing in our country, tying to film? You don't see a whole lot of orchestras creating their own pieces these days as much as you see this being played out in film. It seems like in film, you have access to create all this music that can become socially relevant and highly memorable. And then even now these days, people are going to check out scores of previous films to just hear the music played live.
Yeah. Well, I think film music, even for the entire history of film music, has become a patron, if you will. Symphony orchestras historically have never made enough money to support themselves. There's always been a patron.
Right.
The Duke of Brandenburg, or the British government, pays for the London Philharmonic. The National Endowment of Arts pays for the New York Philharmonic. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but you know what I mean.
Mm.
They may break even, but probably not.
Correct.
So there's always a patron somewhere to keep the tradition of the large symphony orchestra alive. And Hollywood has become a patron. They want big orchestral music. What would Spielberg film be without a John Williams score with the London Symphony Orchestra? It just wouldn't be. So they don't need the National Endowment for the Arts for that. They have Universal Pictures who will come up with $500,000, to do that. And consequently, orchestral music, even if it was dying out in the 50s and 60s to some degree, has its huge new patron. And a lot of composers end up in the film business because that's where you're going to make a living as a composer. And I think what's now we see in the last 10 years or so is that started to fuel the idea of orchestras, having relevance, and that music having relevance, and music being written for orchestras outside of the film industry. We're in an interesting time just for the financial side of the arts. It's a very interesting time right now.
Early in your career, you jumped full tilt into the electric sound. When many folks would have pushed it away.
Yeah.
Many folks these days are pushing away AI, the digitization of all the instruments. Many people are still cautious as we move forward. And it seems like you just keep embracing technology.
Yeah, I see it all as tools. I'm not in favor of anything that violates anyone's copyright or anyone's performances. I pay for every sample library I have so that the people that built those libraries are compensated. And that is rough in AI because right now, all the material that's being used to generate, nobody's being compensated. So I think AI is a festering cesspool in the music industry. But I think when the CD came out or the cassette came out, people were bootlegging records within 5 minutes of the cassette coming out. And that calmed down. Same thing with CDs. That calmed down. It became a viable, cost-effective thing. When the internet came out, Napster put a huge hole in the music industry. Just a bite that we're still not really recovering from. Right? It's calming down. So I think the same thing will happen with AI. We'll go through some historic lawsuits, I'm sure. But I like to think that people are basically good and people will take new technology to basically do productive and good things with it.
I'm going to read you some quotes that will probably make you squirm.
Okay.
Which means they're complimentary, which you don't necessarily love, but here we go. I was going to talk about the awards and the nominations and the plaques and all that, the hardware. But to me, the heart of people who are aware of what is worthy of being praised is more meaningful than some brag sheet. So here we go. This is from Emilio Estevez. Mark, it's the guy I'm interviewing today, is a world-class composer and simply a musical genius. How do you receive that, hearing that from Emilio Estevez, that you are a world-class composer and simply just a musical genius?
Well, I'm very flattered. Emilio, I loved working with Emilio. He was just a wonderful guy, and made a brilliant film. I'd only did the one film with him, but I certainly loved it.
It's a Bobby.
Bobby. Yeah. And I'm glad he thought I was a genius. I certainly worked very hard on that film because I really believed in it. And I wanted it to be successful. I'm glad he thinks that I contributed at a high level.
I have 30 of these. I don't know how long you want to be uncomfortable. How about we just read 3 of them? My mother would have left my dad for this man. His name was Robert Redford. So this one comes from Robert Redford. Mark is a man who really lives his craft. That is so cool. One of the most attractive features about Mark is that he knows how to keep things simple. I like music that is subtle, but still supports the drama and is there for a reason. And Mark does that perfectly.
Bob is a remarkable person. I mean, I have met a lot of very famous people in my life. And I think without exception, within 5 or 10 minutes, I understand, oh, I see why this person is so successful. They're extraordinary people. There's something slightly, they're operating at another level,
Yeah.
And Robert is certainly that way. He's very, very quiet guy, but very smart. And it was one of the first things that I realized about him is that he told me several times at our first meeting that he didn't really know the answer to some of these questions he was going to pose. He said, we're going to have to find this out because I can't guide you. I don't really know.
Okay.
So you have arguably one of the greatest movie stars in the world telling you, I don't know. Where a lot of the time you'll run into directors who say, well, no, it has to be like this. I know it has to be like, I'm sure, And I just think it was a great insight into his who he is as a person, that he was totally willing to just say, I don't know something. We'll figure this out.
Thank you. Beautiful answer. Final quote. I'll embarrass you no longer. She's referring to you. His artistry makes you wish you could live in that musical place every waking moment. She's talking about your music. Her name is Ann Archer.
Well, Ann is actually a really good friend of mine. So
she was essentially paid for that comment. What you're saying.
No, I was the musical director on a film that she was going to sing in. And so that's how we got to know each other. And since then, I'm good friends with her husband, and she and my wife are really good friends. She and my wife ran Artists for Human Rights together for 20 years. But I think that's where she probably comes with that sentiment, because I was a musical director for getting her through a recording session and then live on camera singing. And I think I am pretty good at that because I've been that person. I've been that performer, in the studio who's having a hard time or needs coaching, and I've been coached badly and I've been produced badly. And so I know what not to do. And I'm pretty good at figuring out, what we can do to make this go and to put a performing person at ease so that they really want to do their best, and then therefore they can do their best. So I think that's probably why she feels that, because I went out of my way to make sure that world was very comfortable for her, that the song was arranged, just everything that a producer could do to make their artist happy.
You have been doing this work successfully for decades.
Yeah.
I won't count them all up because they're not going to age you publicly. People can do the work themselves if they desire that. And yet this morning you were up working. And when I leave here today, you're going back to work and you're looking for the work next week, and you're still, this isn't necessarily anymore about I have to. For a while, artists have to create financially. That ship has sailed. Now there's just this desire. So what is it in the morning now that gets you up, and what's it in the evening that keeps you from going to bed early, and what stokes the flames these days?
I think it's those moments of artistic success that I personally experience. I'm doing a project with my wife right now who's a fine artist, and we're doing a series of work where she has a painting, we digitize the painting and split it and do projection mapping and animation back onto the painting with projectors, and then I score the whole thing. And I just love this because we've, quite frankly, never seen anything else. This is sort of unique. I'm really hoping in this next year that it breaks through into the gallery scene. But the fact that you do that, and that you sitting over there at 2:00 in the morning when I finally got it all mapped and the sound is working, you kind of go, just me going, oh yeah, this is, I really like this. This is cool. I'm the first audience, and if I can satisfy me, then the chances are that I'll satisfy a number of other people.
I think it's so cool that as so many folks age, they're looking for more time of just leisure and golf and coffee at McDonald's. And you're up at 2:00 in the morning, riffing art and getting the right sound and look and new technology to work just right.
But that's my golf, It's so much more fun for me to do that. It's what I'm good at, and I like feeling confident. I like feeling that I'm doing things at a high level. And again, that thrill of becoming an audience member of your own work and knowing I made that.
Is that enough? If you only did that projection and that art and the sound for you, do you feel like, that's
well, no, I'm
still
operating on the performance thing too.
Okay.
I practice my horns. I played a concert last night.
Where'd you play the concert last night? I think it bears our audience knowing.
I played at Fire Aid, which was a huge, huge, huge concert to raise money for the victims of the fire damage here in LA. They had the Kia Forum and the Inuit Dome going at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I think between the two audiences was close to 40,000 people, 40,000 people, something like that. And then it was broadcast all over the world.
Right.
And so I performed with Joni Mitchell, and it was just, that's a rush. Are you kidding? In a room at the Kia Forum that's sold out, 18,000 people, sitting next to Joni Mitchell, playing both sides now. I'll take that every day.
Final question before we shift into the Live Inspired 7. You found your craft. You found your calling. You're living it each day, including last night in front of 17,000 plus. Living it today in front of me. Living it last night at 2 a.m., getting the artwork just right. Like you're doing it.
Yeah.
Many of our listeners haven't. It hasn't worked in their favor. They haven't been discovered. They haven't found their passion, their calling, their unique gift. For those who are struggling in one way or another, whether they're 15 trying to figure it out or they're 65 wondering what went wrong, what encouragement would you have for folks who are in a lull and they're looking for the next chapter in their life?
There'd be 2 points of view that I would have. One is what I just call the 3 Ps. And I think you produce, you promote, and you persist. And really, if you just produce and promote, produce and promote, produce and promote, produce and promote, it's going to happen. I don't. It may take you 35 years, but it will happen. That's just the formula. The more outflow you have, at some point, it's going to return.
Right.
At some point, the flowing out is going to generate a flowing back in. So that's the basic advice, and you probably get along at the age of 15 with just that. The other thing, though, that I've discovered, and this was validated a couple of months ago when I listened to Warren Buffett say exactly the same thing. He said, you have to realize that there are people out there who don't want you to succeed. They exist. And you just make sure they're not in your life. Because if you're sitting there at 65 and you haven't done this, even though you're promoting and persisting and promoting and producing and persisting, there's probably someone who's making it harder. And probably someone said, oh, don't do that. You really want to do that? You've probably got that person somewhere. And you just need to...
What do you do when that person is you? What do you do when you recognize
you have
to
you have to recognize that and just tell them to shut up. I mean, really.
Yeah.
The very fact, though, that you recognize it's you is the first step forward. Because if it's hell, if you don't even recognize it's coming from your own universe. But if you can at least say that, well, there's something, however you want to look at it, spiritually, psychologically, whether it's mental or spiritual, whatever your philosophy of how the human being works, it's really not the real you. All right? It's some previous loss. It's some other person that told you this earlier. It's something else. It's some mechanism. And if you just have to say, it's not me.
Yeah.
Just move over there. Get out of the way.
Mark Isham, we have 7 questions we ask all of our guests. We're grateful that you are now one of them. What a blessing this has been. But question number 1 for the great Mark Isham is, I'm going to ask this as 1A and 1B.
Okay.
So it's always 1A, 1B is just for you. 1A, the listeners will be familiar with this. What's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'll just be exact about this. I'm a Scientologist. So it probably started with Dianetics, Modern Science of Mental Health.
Okay.
By L. Ron Hubbard.
Question 1B.
Yeah.
You're somewhat musically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's an album, composer, musician, who's had the most impact on your life?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have my heroes, musical heroes, Miles Davis, Joe Zawinul, Wayne Shorter. But I think going back to the thing I said about, having the right people in your life, I mean, the woman I married is probably,
what a great answer,
been the most impactful person.
Donna.
Yeah.
What's one positive characteristic or one trait you possessed as a little kid growing up in Manhattan that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today in the studio? So something you once were that through time or age or ego or just tiredness you've lost sight of.
It might be a little of that arrogance that my wife says I need to find. I think I was probably a little pushy. I just said, no, it's mine and I'm doing it now. And I tend to be a little more good-natured and a little more acquiescent to the group. So I'm not sure that's a tremendously
It's like when
true.
you're interviewing someone and they're like, what's your worst skill set? And you're, I just love people so much. I work too long at the office. But if that's...
But I think I've cultivated that other side of me because I think a parent has to have that. A parent has to have limitless patience. And I think the film industry demands limitless patience because you're working with a cast of characters that you can't even imagine.
No. Yeah. Keep it there for now. This third question is relevant to where you and I are right now in the time that we're recording this. If your home caught fire, and all living things are out, animals, children, spouse, you have an opportunity of running back into your estate and grabbing one thing.
Oh, my God. Well, we've done it. We've done it. We've evacuated twice here.
I mean, we're in the hills of LA right now. It's Tenderwood all around us. It's an incredibly beautiful area and at risk all the time.
Yeah.
So you said you've done it twice.
Yeah.
If you could only grab one of the things that you put into the car, what's that one thing you would grab?
I'm not sure I can give you a one-up. It depends on the mood right then. If I were in the middle of 3 projects, I would probably grab the hard drive.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want months of work just to vanish.
And is there...
That's one of the things that I always do grab. I grab the backup hard drive. But I also grab the 1944 vintage Martin Committee trumpet.
I was going to ask you.
But I bought when I was 18 years old with my own money and still play to this day.
If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a long conversation with anyone, living or deceased, who do you want to be seated next to?
Oh, my goodness. Well, as a Scientologist, I would actually love to have met Hubbard himself. But I also love to sit down next to Miles Davis and just have a beer.
Jam session.
Because he's still probably the biggest musical influence that I've ever. And I never met him. Never had a chance to meet him.
What's the best advice that you've ever received?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that one. Because I'm not quite sure where it's all come from. I instinctively knew that to produce and promote was what was essential. I'm trying to think where that first came to mind, though. From an artist's point of view, that's probably the best advice I can give to anybody. I'm trying to think where it actually originated in my world. It may have just been of observing people. I certainly knew about it before I read any books. I've gone on to read books about it and have been validated that, yes, these are very sound principles by other people. But I knew it back before I was even had the courage to pick up a book on promotion or marketing or anything like that.
What advice would you give yourself at age 20? So if you could whisper a little wisdom back to that little Mark, what would you say to him?
Well, my 20s were rough years in the sense that I was a bit, kind of a bad boy in those days.
We'll set that for the next podcast. I'm sorry I wasted everyone's time on this episode.
So I would probably,
You'll love part 2 with Isham.
I would probably say, just knock it off, kid. Get it together.
And it led to this moment. You know what I mean? Like, had you had it together, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
I don't know what is, but it's not this.
Yeah.
So the final question for my friend Mark Isham is, it has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
I think it is sort of simplistic and may seem mundane or self-aggrandizing, but I've always looked at, as an artist And as a person, I just want the world to be a better place for me having been here. People be happier, and experience something, a moment of joy or moment with the music. For my kids to grow up well, feel that they can approach life well and do well in life. So as a father, as an artist, just have made my environment, the world around me, slightly better for having been there.
Well, Mark Isham, the world is significantly better because you are part of it. Your children are better. Donna's better. I'm better. And those who ultimately see the film On Fire will be better because you're part of it. So I want to thank you for being my friend, for being part of our project, and for believing like I do that the best is yet to come.
Well, I could not be more in agreement with that. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be in the part of the film, because it's such an inspiring story. And actually meet you face to face and see the product of your persistence. Talk about persistence. It's inspiring.
Friends, I'm not going to let him turn the tables on this episode, so I'm going to wrap it up before Mark carries it forward to a place we should not go. That's the great Mark Isham. My name is John O'Leary, and today is your day. What a gift. Live inspired. There's so much to share about Mark that I hope you experienced during our conversation, but one was this: his humility. He answers the door himself. He brings me back through his home. We walk through the kitchen out to a studio. The lighting's a little bit off in that room. I don't have a place to set my camera, so he brings in a light. He brings in his wife's camera holder, sets it up for me. All this from a man who is iconic in Hollywood, but not iconic in his own mind. He is humble, he is faithful, he is generous, and he was a joy to sit with and learn from. My friends, speaking of learning from, one thing we've learned from this rollout of a film is how incredible our community is. That means you. The number 5 rated film, according to Box Office during opening week, was Soul on Fire. As impressive as that was, as impressive as it might feel to beat out Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or J-Lo in their own game, what moves us even more than that is the number 1 ranked movie, according to audience reviews, was Soul on Fire. That's you. That's the heart of our community. That's the fact that in a marketplace of despair and struggle, a film celebrating truthfully that miracles still happen, that community can make a difference, and that our best is yet to come, moves hearts, moves minds, moves box office dollars, and also moves the score with Rotten Tomatoes. If you've seen the film, why not rate it? That's a great way to keep these scores coming in. If you haven't yet seen Soul on Fire, do me a big old favor. Go online right now, find the nearest theater, click in, bring a friend or 2 or 10 or an entire theater full. You will leave that theater, I promise you, everyone else is living into this, with your soul on fire. So my friends, that's some good news. The movie remains in theaters. It remains something that is touching hearts and minds and reminding us as we stumble through our days that God is still God, the foundation is still firm, and the best is yet to come. It's a good reminder. My friends, I want to thank you for being part of our Soul on Fire Voices of series. That's been a joy to bring your way. I want to thank you for being part of our podcast community. And I want to remind you how grateful we are that you are part of our world. So family, for this time, and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. Today is your day. What a gift. Live with your soul on fire.